special edition of Code Red. I'm Ray Carr, and with me always is Fitz. Fitz, how are you tonight?
I'm okay, Ray. I hope you are doing well as our guest.
Yeah. Well, tonight we're into part two of our case that we've been talking about, the Shadow over Saanich, which is the homicide of Jeff's daughter, Lindsay. Uh, we talked last week and we talked about your daughter, what your daughter was like, and what happened to her on that fateful night, uh, almost 18, a little over 18 years ago. Um, I'd like to start out tonight, Jeff, and I'd like to hear from you when you first became aware of what happened to Lindsay.
Sure. I live in Calgary, Alberta, which is about 600 miles away from Victoria on the other side of the Rocky Mountains. I think I explained last week. So I was informed by my ex wife, Lindsay's mom, in the wee hours of the morning, the day after the murder. And I was asleep. So it was probably 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning. And phone rang. I answered it. And it's not common for her to call me. And she was very distraught and asked me if I knew about what was going on with Lindsay. I said, no, what's going on? And of course, she said she's been murdered.
Oh God.
And
Hmm.
I broke down and basically almost fell out of bed sobbing. And I couldn't get myself together to keep talking to her. So I said, I have to go. I'll talk to you later. So that's how I found out.
Oh, dear
I
God.
laid around sobbing for quite some time. I phoned a good friend of mine and just said, please come and help me. I'm a mess. I can't function here. So he came over, asked me, what he could do to help. And I said, I need to get to Victoria, but I couldn't get off the floor. Literally, I could not get off the floor crying, sobbing. So he, was trying to feed me and, be really helpful. And luckily, he knew a guy, a roommate or ex-roommate that worked at the airlines. So he said, well, when do you want to go? I said, well, as soon as I'm able to get up and walk. So they booked me on every flight that day, which were regular flights. So I think I finally got a flight about 1 in the afternoon. I got up and he had packed some stuff for me and took me to the airport, still crying, sobbing on the plane all the way there. So that's kind of how I found out. And about, I mean, it's not funny, but it sort of set, it established the type of relationship I was going to have with police and how they were acting. It was probably about 4 or 5 days after I was in Victoria, I get a call from the police service and they say, we need to talk to you, come and talk to you about a serious family matter. Well, it was like 4 or 5 days later. I'm already in Victoria. And so basically, I kind of told them to FO and get their crap together. And that's how I found out. And, of course, police said, oh, gee, we're supposed to tell you. And I said, yeah, good work, guys. But that sort of established my relationship with them, which has been not good the whole time.
There's no good way, of course, of getting news like that. We've had a few parents on here whose children have met untimely, violent deaths, and it's tough every time hearing it. No matter how jaded some of us may be working these cases, but we're parents and grandparents, and I know
Mm-hmm.
Ray knows that too. So it almost sounds like from the very get go, you show up uh, to the jurisdiction, and it's almost like a there's antipathy between the two of you, the police and you. Does that sound correct? There's problems. You're not really communicating real well.
No, there was very poor communication, very poor connection between the police and I. And I'm thinking, you know, these police are supposed to be there for us. And, you know, I understood that they've got a murder, they're investigating. Um, but yeah, it didn't work as far as them answering questions that I had. And they were more concerned. I more or less directly went to them after I arrived in Victoria. And they really shuffled around to get me into an interview room with, you know, that they wanted to video and voice record me being interviewed by police. And I was like, yeah, I got no problem, you know. But meanwhile, I'm like, what happened? What's going on with my daughter? And I had this feeling right from the beginning I was dealing with the Keystone cops. Just the way they were fumbling around, it was almost like they didn't know what the hell they were doing. But I did notice, because it was so obvious, they were like adamant. I had some water and stuff, and as soon as I finished, they, you know, came in and grabbed my glass and hustled it out. I'm assuming they wanted fingerprints and DNA or whatever, but they were just so obvious about it. It was almost comical, even though it was such a horrible situation to be in.
You know, I gotta let me understand this. Your daughter's murdered. You don't find out till the next
Yes.
morning in the wee hours of the morning because your wife calls you. You're a mess.
Right.
You catch a plane and you go out to where you go out to where Lindsay is, where Lindsay lives, and your first contact with the police is not till 4 or 5 days later.
Well, no, it was the day I arrived in Victoria. But the police told me that, you know, that my ex should have never notified me. They're supposed to do that. So they had notified Calgary police, because I live there, to come and visit me. But for whatever reason, they got around to it. It was 4 or 5 days later. I was already in Victoria dealing with murder. And Calgary police phoned me and say, we need to come and talk to you about a serious police matter. Just like, you guys are a joke. Like, what the hell?
So that's amazing to me.
Yeah, it was bizarre. It was bizarre.
That's just amazing. So
yeah,
your first interaction with them is they take you into an interview room. They give you a glass of water.
Oh yeah.
You take a drink from that glass.
Yeah.
They come in and grab the glass and rush it out because they want prints and DNA.
Yeah. Well, that I'm assuming that because they were very anxious around this glass and that I'd have a drink, and they brought me another glass of water right away to replace the one that they had scurried off with. So, you know, it was obvious to me they wanted DNA and fingerprints or whatever the hell they were doing. And I was just like, oh my God, like, how could they think I'm a suspect? You know, I live 600 miles away. I love my daughter with all my heart, but they're doing their job. Like, it's not something the average person experiences every day.
Not in the least.
And you know, and I'm reasonably bright and pick up on things that are going on around me.
What, did your ex-wife, come to Saanich area at all? Does she live still there? I'm not clear at the time.
Yes, she lives in Saanich. Yes.
Okay.
Still does.
Okay. So she had interaction. Did they treat her any differently than the police treat her any differently than they were treating you?
I don't believe so. We don't communicate well. My ex-wife doesn't like me at all.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry about that too, but the death of a child certainly didn't help things in that regard, I am sure. And so,
well, you would think it would bring us together, but it didn't.
It just depends, and it's certainly complicated at that point. So how many days did you spend on the ground in Saanich? Obviously, you're working at this time, and you had to take off from all that, but this is your priority. I know you said you went to the medical examiner's office,
yes.
And I guess you identified your daughter, but they encouraged you not to do much of an examination.
Well, what happened was I was in Victoria, and of course, my first request was, where's my daughter? I need to see her. And they wouldn't allow that. They said they were doing whatever, investigating. And then they said they shipped her over to Vancouver to the crime lab. So I had to wait, and I can't remember how many days, but let's say it was a week or more before they said they brought her back to Victoria, and she was in the morgue at Royal Jubilee Hospital. So I demanded to go see her. I got there. So I was accompanied by two Saanich police officers, male, female. One of them, I believe, the female was assigned to be my handler, which didn't work well. Anyhow, we go to the morgue, meet them there, and I'm waiting, and I'm like, hurry up, what's going on here? And, it was delayed. So I got very agitated. I wasn't that friendly. And so I got a bit aggressive verbally. And they were like, oh, it's like taking time, whatever their bullshit excuses were. So I got really aggressive. And then they said, we can't see her today. And I was like, you know what? Fuck you. Give me your badge. You're a cop. Go tell them we're looking. So they finally arranged, okay, give us another 20 minutes. You can see her. All right. So then they opened this door, and my daughter's on the other side of this glass window. And so I got really aggressive again, verbally. And so then they opened the door, and I got to go in. And of course, I held her, and I was stroking her hair and crying and talking to her. And that's where I made my vow that, I'd find out who did this to her and make sure they're arrested and exposed in the media, and I'd keep going till the day I died. And so that was at the point where I was standing there with this female police officer, and they had blankets or sheets or whatever up around under her chin. And, I was distraught and crying. And so then I was going to grab the blanket to have a look. And that female officer begged me not to do that. And so I just felt, it was my daughter. I bathed her while she was a baby and, all that stuff. But yeah, I just, okay, fine. So I didn't. And, do I regret? Yeah. Am I glad I didn't? Yes. It's one of those things that it wasn't like I was going to be totally grossed out because it was a dead person. I grew up on farm, lots of death and killing and stuff because we kept a lot of animals. So it wasn't foreign for me to deal with bleeding and cuts and death. And, Jesus, we castrated and branded and dehorned and sometimes killed animals because they're so sick. Yeah, it was just such a tough day.
Jeff, you said that two officers were assigned to you. One was a male and one was a female. And the female was to be your handler. And you said
Yes.
that didn't work out very well. Why didn't that work out very well?
No.
Why
communication was very poor. And pardon me? Well, as I said, the communication with her was extremely poor. And I just felt majority of the time I've been dealing with Saanich police until recently. They have very few will talk to you like we're sitting here talking today, kind of talk normal. They have this cop talk, this official jingle they speak in that sounds like they're in court reading some statement that's prepared by a lawyer or something. And most of them will speak to me like that. And I always tell them to stop. Just talk to me as a man, as a guy. Like, stop that bullshit. And of course, most of them won't. It's almost like they get a charge out of doing that because they know it bothers me. And then also I always feel they're talking down to you. And I've educated them that on a few times that, don't fucking talk down to me. But they have this superiority complex because they got a uniform on, or they're, some fancy detective with their silk tie and sports jacket on. They think they're somebody. And that really bugs me. It really bothers me. I just want them to talk to me. So there's probably been a few of them that have caught on to that. And when I say a few, 3, 2, maybe. The current officer that was working the case, he gets it. He just talks to me like a normal person. The others, they do this cop talk, circle talk sort of thing, saying words with no meaning, and it's just a bunch of bullshit.
Jeff, can we move on from
I don't
there?
like that. I'm a very
No, that's fine. Feel free to vent here. And I mean, we support law enforcement, but they don't always get it right. And I look back in my career, and maybe some people I could have handled a little bit differently, but nothing like what you're describing here. It almost seemed to be systemic over the years within that department. But we don't have to keep discussing the very difficult parts, and in terms of there's a lot, many difficult parts. I assume there was a funeral service uh, when when Lindsay was finally released to the family. Were you? Did the police show up to that, and or did you take it upon yourself, either there, before, or after, to talk with some of her friends, including this boyfriend, and try to find out information from them? How were they reacting to you? We know how the police were reacting to you. How was her former boss, the woman who was the mother of her boyfriend that she was trying to get away from? What was your interaction with them, if any?
well. Yes, there was a funeral. It was held at Cathedral, downtown Victoria. Probably largest turnout they ever had. I think they said there was over 450 people or something that attended. They couldn't fit them all in the church, so they put speakers outside on the sidewalks because there were people crowded around the front of the church. It was packed. It was packed. And I'd had very bad experience with boyfriend's mother. And so that has never changed. I say openly, she is the nastiest woman I have ever met in my life. My opinion is she's evil. Now, I'm being sued by her for libel and slander, which I really didn't do, but it was published on a website under my control. And I've been told I can't say that. I said, I'll say that till my dying day. That's who she is. And those experiences continued on. So at the funeral, I didn't want anything to do with her. Her son, Lindsay's boyfriend, he acted as if nothing happened. He was actually, I sat and watched him, and we met a couple times. It was almost like he was enjoying the notoriety of Lindsay's death. There wasn't a sad bone in his body that I saw. There was no tears. There was no mourning. He was like happy. He was happy. He was driving his mom's fancy Mercedes AMG sports car. And it was like, oh, Mr. Happy, this is great. And I confronted him like, what the fuck, man? Your girlfriend was just killed. Oh, yeah. It was a bizarre situation. And then I met him once for dinner. His mom was there, and she just got right into disparaging Lindsay. So I ended that dinner because I was ready to smack her and left. And another occasion with her, I went to a house at 5:30 a.m. There was some couple bad guys there with a gun, and another person they had phoned me and said, get over here. We're going to question this guy. So I went there. Police told me don't go because I phoned them and said, you better show up. They're going to hurt this guy. They wouldn't come. So I went by myself. And yeah, I grabbed Jason and yanked him out of there, even though the gun was pointed at me. I just brushed it aside and opened the door and said, get the fuck out of here. And I went back in and lectured the guy with the gun and the other ones. I don't live in fear. So anyhow, I phoned the mom not a couple hours later, and she basically told me to fuck off and mind my own business. And she wasn't going to thank me, or, you know, she is like a nut job, that woman. Total nut job. So the girlfriends, very friendly. At first, they were shocked. They were scared. Yes, they were talking to me. You know, the closer ones used to call me father. I knew them, father with an A. And so at first, they were very friendly. And then my ex-wife, who doesn't like me, was telling them not to talk to me. So that strained that relationship a bit. But the core group of them kept speaking to me. Yeah. So the funeral, I got up and gave a heart-wrenching speech. I was asked if I wanted to talk, and I said, yeah, absolutely. And so I did. For a while, I was crying. I don't even know what I said part of the time because, yeah, I was distraught. And then turned out through a set of circumstances, there was a wake after at a golf club, and people I was with, they didn't want to go. And then I ended up in the car with Shirley Zalo and her boyfriend, Paul Bergshoff. And again, I was in the back seat. She turned around and was like, started berating me and Lindsay. And so I threatened them physically to stop the car and let me out, or they're going to be hurt. And
Jeff,
they said,
you know,
no,
Jeff,
no.
can I stop you a minute there? What exactly? That's the
Yeah.
second time you said that this woman had disparaged both you and Lindsay. What exactly did she say?
Well, the first time at a restaurant, she starts in by saying, well, you know what Lindsay was like? All she cared about was buying shoes and, you know, her girlfriends and what you look like. And I was like, Shirley, stop right fucking there, or we're going to have a big problem here right now. Like, I'm not going to sit here and let you berate my daughter. I'm going to fucking hit you. So this dinner is over. We're leaving. And then the second time in the car, she turned around. She's like, who the fuck do you think you are? You know, with that fucking speech of yours and that funeral, that was all about my fucking family. And, you know, you're a fucking jerk. And I was just like, all right, somebody's going to get hurt here in minutes if you don't stop this car.
And that's
to answer your question. Sorry for the swearing, but it's real.
And that's your basic interaction with, did your ex-wife and this woman have any interaction with one another? I didn't mean to make you laugh.
Up until recently, it's bizarre. Up until recently, they were friends.
But something happened recently, it seems.
I don't know what's going on. I heard something that tells me my ex is not drinking that Kool-Aid any longer. She is a very, meaning boyfriend's mom, very manipulative, intimidating bully.
Okay.
If you can imagine, in a car one day with two of Lindsay's girlfriends, she turns around to them. She's sitting in the front, they're in the back. You little bitches know too much. Jason talks too much. Keep your little fucking mouth shut, or you know what's going to happen to you.
Regular Ma Barker here, huh? Yeah, that sounds like
That would be kind.
yeah, okay. From your explanation anyway. Uh, yeah, I wonder if she'd come on the podcast, but we'll see how that plays out. Yeah, so now you're living
Yeah.
through this terrible grief. You don't have a good communication
Mhm.
system with the police, and you don't with at least
No.
the boyfriend and her mother. It seems you did have a decent early relationship with Lindsay's some of her girlfriends, but then they stopped
Mhm.
communicating with you after a while.
They are scared crapless
Mm,
that if they peep, they're next. And
mm,
that's the word in Victoria. There are many people out there. As a matter of fact, just recently I was told again by, guys that are attached to the bad side, Lindsay's name is never to be spoken in our house, ever. And if any of your friends mention her, they're not allowed here anymore. That's the attitude out there right now. The girlfriends are scared to
How do you
talk.
know that? How do you know that, Jeff?
How do I know what?
How do you know that that was said inside of Jason's house by his mother?
Well, that wasn't him. That's somebody else. Because the woman who was told that told me.
So this
Like,
wall of
people will
smoke.
speak to me.
We have a really bad connection here, Jim. We have a really bad connection. You're kind of talking, but your lips are moving, but there's not words coming out.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's not
My
your fault.
connection with you guys is clear.
It
Yeah,
might just be his video, Ray. I mean, I think when he talks, it's coming across.
it's kind of delayed a little bit.
Um, so, yeah, I can't imagine living 600 miles away and having a loved one violently murdered. We talked about it last week. Sustained aggression, overkill to the upper torso, certainly the chest area. We talked about the relatively new artificial breast, if you will, and that seemed to be the focus point of the stabbing. Certainly, after a lethal, one or more lethal stabs were made, and the whole setup too. We're not going to get into the whole thing again, but there's a man and woman couple that your daughter had been talking to, at least 10 phone calls, I think you said, but no name
Yes.
recorded. Some kind of a burner phone. She meets them at this house. They go upstairs into a bedroom, and that's when the attack occurs. The boyfriend was supposed to be there. He showed up later. Um, Coincidence? Who knows about his role there? But certainly, no one was there to protect her. This couple vanishes, and 18 years ago, to last week, I believe, or so, the case remains unsolved, and nothing more to go with. I understand, and I'm not sure if we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but in 2020, there was a pretty substantial article written by one or more investigative reporters, and they seem to turn over some stones, but I'm not sure if they came up with any answers or not.
Well, we don't have any arrests, so obviously
Sure.
whatever was turned up hasn't helped. I was on the Dr. Phil show, and a young woman phoned me to confess very important information, and the police just blew her off. They didn't even bring her in for interview.
Hmm.
I set it up. The woman was reluctant to talk to police because they wouldn't listen to her when she initially contacted them. So I phoned the officer in charge and said, get a hold of this woman. She's willing to talk. And my experience is they will change their mind if you give them time. You have to catch them in that moment they want to speak. Well, 2 weeks later, he still hadn't talked to her. And then he finally phoned her, met her in a coffee shop by himself, and she blurted out the confession of what she had heard somebody saying, what a rush he got from stabbing Lindsay. The first stab just gave him this charge. She identified the person, knew it was him, and the cop said, yeah, no, we're not interested. Have a nice day. In a coffee shop. They didn't bring her in for statement or interview or anything.
Provide us a detail to what that girl called and told you when you were on Dr. Phil. I know you said something about this person enjoyed stabbing Lindsay. Tell us exactly what she said, Jeff.
But we may not want names here on.
No. I just said, tell us what she said. You don't have to give us her name or anybody's name. Just tell her what was said. Was it a man?
Okay.
Was it a woman? What was said?
She was in a house that she lived in with her boyfriend, and she knew he used illegal drugs and was dealing in them. And she said she was in a bedroom right next to the living room. And the boyfriend came in with 3 individuals, 2 of them very close to this case. They sat in the living room. They weren't aware she was there. She knew who they were. They sat down and they were doing lines of cocaine on the coffee table in the living room. And one of them, very close to this case, they were talking about stuff, and Lindsay's murder came up, and he was like, yeah, that first time I plunged the knife into her, it just gave me such a charge, just like chilled right through my body. It just felt so good. She knew who it was that was talking.
About what year was this, or how many years after the homicide?
Well, I think I was on Dr. Phil 5 years ago, let's say.
So this is relatively recent. Did she mention about when she heard this? Was it a month after the homicide? Was it a year after the homicide? Was it 10 years after the homicide?
If my memory serves me right, it was a few years after the homicide.
You know, you've been talking about this, for lack of better words, wall of silence that exists in Victoria Saanich over the years. What do you attribute that wall of silence? It wasn't always there, but it seems as though as time has gone by, the wall has become thicker and thicker, with people not wanting to get involved or even talk about this.
Exactly. And, and that's puzzled me as well. So what I determined after talking to the people and coming to my own conclusion why, listening to them, is they're more afraid of Saanich police than they are of the bad guys. And they feel Saanich police are not good. They have a history of being not good and abusing women up until recently. And so I used to write about that, saying, who are the real gangsters here? Who are the bad guys here? People do not trust Saanich police. That's the bottom line. They're afraid of them, actually. I had a confession from one woman who left Victoria, moved to the other side of the country. She called up an officer to tell him what she had heard about Lindsay's murder. He met with her privately, not two officers, not at the police station. He forced her to perform fellatio on him, and threatened her to keep her mouth shut. She immediately left Victoria, moved to the other side of Canada, changed her name. That's what we're dealing with.
Jeff, and we have no way of confirming one way or the other about the Saanich PD. You're stating what you're stating. We don't have any other independent information there. But let me just ask you this part. Have you ever been in contact with the British Columbia Provincial Police and or the RCMP regarding this matter?
Well, there's no BC provincial police.
Oh, didn't know
There's
that.
either
Okay.
the municipal police forces and there's the RCMP.
Okay.
We have a version of FBI, I guess, called CSIS, but they don't deal with this stuff. That's a Canada-wide. The problem I run into is if I try to talk to anybody else, like RCMP or whatever, they just refer you back to Saanich. Like, Saanich is handling this file, you need to talk to them. That's it. Bottom line. I've tried desperately over the years to get it removed from Saanich, and the best I got from a high-level government person that I was dealing with was, it's up to Saanich, and Saanich will not give it away. There's a major crime unit on Vancouver Island that's a combination of all the police forces. They all have to contribute to it, that handle all the major crimes on Vancouver Island, and all of them are supposed to go to them. Saanich was the only municipal district at the time that refused to join what they call VIMSU, Vancouver Island Major Crime Unit. Saanich refused to join, and quite a few years later, because of pressure from my supporters and myself, in a desperate attempt to remain his longest standing ruling of Saanich, the mayor at the time, who was the longest standing mayor in Canada, said, oh, we're going to join VIMSU, but they would not, and they've since been members of VIMSU, but they won't give up Lindsay's file. They will not turn it over to any other authority.
Why do you suppose that's so? In your estimation, why do you think that is?
Cover up. Cover up.
What does that
They
mean?
are known to take care of their friends. We've had 5 police chiefs, and under my best determination, they're all Masons, and they never hire from outside the police force. There's never been an open competition for police chief. It has always historically been from within, and they will not hire from outside. They hire officers from outside. I've been told by a few current or retired or excommunicated Saanich police officers is you don't get into the upper division there unless you belong to the club. You can make a staff sergeant, but to inspector and above, you have to join the club.
And the club you're referring to is the Masons?
And always, that's a high probability that my information is providing me, but I can't prove it. But definitely, it's been referred to as the club. And in Victoria, it's known as the Old Boys Club.
Do you know how many
They
sworn
call
are
the
on
media, their media. Sorry.
No, you continue.
The
Go ahead.
Saanich police, until I confronted Saanich police, they call local media our media partners. And I said, you can't do that. They're not your partners. They are. They listen to the police. The last walk I went on, The major newspaper in Victoria is Time Colonist, no coverage. TV station in Victoria, Check TV, no coverage. Radio station there, major talk show I used to be on every year. The host of that show has changed, no show. One independent newspaper stands out and handles it. The other ones, they won't, they're done. And I'm sure they've been told to stop.
How many sworn officers are on the PD? Do you know?
I don't know exactly the number of sworn officers, but I know they have just under 300 staff at Saanich Police.
Okay. So it's a medium-sized police department.
You're talking about both civilian and sworn, correct?
I believe that's so.
Okay.
Yeah.
The
Now,
police, the fire, and the municipal hall are all connected in the same spot. I was told one of the years I was holding the walk that I couldn't have the walk. And I asked why. And they said, the Masons are having a special event at the hall, so you can't come. I went anyhow. And they said, we're not going to allow you to use the washrooms. I said, we'll urinate in the parking lot. They said, you'll be arrested. And I go, well, it'll be on your shoulders. You won't let us use the washrooms.
you know, you mentioned that for the last 18 years, people have been reluctant to speak. And is it
Yes.
fear of the unknown? Is it fear of something more specific? Is it a fear of the family? Is it a fear of the police department? What's preventing these people from talking?
They fear the bad guys because the word's out there, you talk, you die. Just like Lindsay, they'll refer to Lindsay. And they don't trust the police because of, I mean, you say you guys have no proof of the police. Check the media. It's constant. Recently, young girl had an officer assigned to investigate a situation she was going through. Saanich Police ended up charging her, and she was like a really good person. And then it was found out by a different police force in Victoria that it wasn't right. So all the charges were cleared. Saanich won't apologize. The officer assigned to her was sending her text, which she shows publicly. Show me your tits. I want to come on your face. That's the officer, Saanich police officer assigned to her case, is sending her texts like that. He gets assigned to the Capital Region porn abatement group. It's insane.
Okay, and everyone out there, we're hearing from Jeff Buziak, and these are his allegations about the police department. We have no independent proof at this time. What's happening? You said check the media, and our audience can do that. And if a representative of the police department wants to come on, we can talk about that too. Jeff, have you hired any kind of a?
I could tell you more stories.
Well, I'm sure you could. But let me ask you this: back to the investigation itself. Is there any in Canada? I don't know the laws of Canada as well as I do here in the U.S. Is there any civil recourse for you? In other words, to hire a lawyer or a team of lawyers. I know it may cost you some money, but to go after either the police, the jurisdiction, some of the parties involved, you've mentioned already, to go after them civilly and somehow get depositions off of them where they're sworn under oath and they can't commit perjury. And I'm not sure what the equivalent of the Fifth Amendment is in Canada, but they basically, in a deposition, you really kind of have to answer questions in a lawsuit. Is there any option like that for you?
I suppose there is, but I decided not to waste time and get distracted with the whole court thing. Plus, the money involved is insane.
Uh,
I've more or less used up all my retirement funds and everything at this point between trying to survive for the first few years, because my occupation is based solely on production. And so that wasn't very good for quite a while. And hiring private investigators. So I probably don't have the funds to do that. However, in saying that, one of the local media in Victoria took Saanich Police to court numerous times. They felt that there was precedent that after 10 years of nothing, Saanich Police would be bound to release information on my daughter's murder. And they had precedent to prove that. Saanich Police did provide, finally, after many court appearances, I think it was 400 pages of information, but everything was redacted.
right.
So the media went back to court again to get the redacted stuff released, and a judge sealed the file. No more. Done. Sealed. Somehow they have some thing they can seal the file. So that was the end. So thanks to them, they spent the money that I didn't have to spend. And it was lots.
Was this strictly the legal filings to get information from the police? Was this strictly about Lindsay's murder, or were there other factors they were looking into?
Strictly Lindsay's murder.
Interesting. Okay. Well, good for
They
that
wanted
media
to know
outlet.
about telephone calls, interviews. Yeah. And they got 400 pages of basically nothing, a bunch of redacted stuff. Some things were interesting. And then they kept pursuing it in court, and a judge sealed it, said no more court action. It's done. The file's sealed.
Did he give a reason why?
I wasn't there, so I don't know the whole ruling. I was just told it's sealed, it's done, no more. Of course, they always, you see, Saanich Police keep it classified as active so that nobody has access, including me. I can't even get the autopsy report, nothing. They told me year 2 it was a cold case. So I said, well, hand over the info. And they said, well, we're not doing that. I said, I've spoken to a lawyer. You have to give me certain access to the file once it's a cold case. Not all of it. I understood. They said, well, we're going to have a meeting and discuss it. They phoned me back and said, it's active. So they've kept it active ever since. And they know that nobody can touch it. It's active. In Canada, they even threatened the private investigators with letters stating that they would lose their license, because in Canada it has to be signed by the police, and they can withdraw it and you lose your license. They don't need to even go to court, I'm told. And they'll charge them with interfering with an active investigation, active criminal investigation. So they threatened to say, like, stay away from this. Even though the one PI I had hired was providing the information directly to the police that they discovered. Yes, I was aware of it, but it went directly to the police. I had instructed the private investigator to do that. And they got 2 warning letters. First one was a warning. Second one was, that's it. One more time, we're pulling your license, and there's a good possibility you'll be charged with interfering with an active criminal investigation.
I hear in your voice a lot of anger, a lot of frustration.
Of course.
And I know that
Yeah.
over 18 years, all these things that have happened and all these roadblocks are a source of that. And I hear that in
Yes.
your voice, and I can't imagine, you're seeking answers as well as justice, and you're not able to find a road to be able to find either. That you can answer my questions, give me justice, something that I can move forward with. I understand that. I get that. And that has to be extremely frustrating for you. And the anger, but you got to be careful too, Jeff. Lashing out. They say you get a lot more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. And if you keep,
Yeah,
you
Dr. Phil went over that quite a bit with me, but I have a degree in psychology and I understand. I've tried that method of being Mr. Nice Guy, and all that does with Saanich Police is it makes them sit back in their chair and put their feet up on the desk. That's all that happens. And I know from my university education and life in general, I've been dealing with people for 46 years in my business. You poke somebody enough, you get a response. You poke them enough, they do something about it. Just like a lazy teenager. You don't be nice to them because they won't clean their room and, oh, you're such a nice boy. It's okay. You don't have to clean your room. No, you have to get firm. And that is what produces results with Saanich Police, if any, is I have to be firm with them. And many of them have even told me, Jeff, if it wasn't for you, we would have been long gone from this investigation. If it wasn't for what you do, we would never be here today. Keep doing what you're doing. I would do the same. So I believe differently than what you just said. I believe that most of these officers have played a lot of team sports before they became police officers. And if either one of you guys have played a lot of team sports, coaches aren't pretty in the dressing room and they're not kissing your butt or stroking you or telling you you're very nice and I'll give you a hug if you're failing out on the field. And Dr. Phil was no different. He played football. And when he tried to give me this crap about, oh, you have to be nice to the police, I go, yeah, I tried that. Doesn't work. And I said, you played football. I'll bet you went into the dressing room at halftime and you're losing horribly. I'll bet that coach wasn't nice to you, was he? His audience dove up on their feet cheering. They cut that all out and he was angry at me.
Well, I'm not angry because I kind of agree with you, but I'm not
Thank you.
saying be nice. I'm
Right.
saying it's not that be nice, but I'm saying there's a fine line, and you need to find where that line's at. That's all.
I agree. I'm very
But
civil. I met with them when I was out there. We're very civil. We have good conversation. I tell them when I'm upset, or I tell them, quit bullshitting me or talk to me. Don't give me that crap. I'm very direct. And they should be able to handle that.
well, that's what that's great. But
We're
I know
18, we're 18, we're 18 years, we have nothing. And Kennedy announced we're going to put a man on the moon. That took 6 years. There was a war in 1939 that killed millions of people around the world. They sorted that out in 6 years. We're 18 years into a murder. We're supposed to have the most professional people that we know working on this. Don't tell me this is complicated and it takes time. I live in a province where they drill oil. We're the third largest reserve in the world. They drill in the North Sea and all over the place, out in the ocean. I've asked CEOs and people of these oil companies in this town I live with, if you assigned engineers for a project to go drill in the North Sea or something, and they came back to you after 5 years and said, we can't do this, they laugh at me when I ask them a question like that. They go, Jeff, if we didn't have results in 5 months, or at least see we're moving towards it, they're fired. Now, I don't expect Saanich Police to sort this out in 5 months, but 18 years, if you can't do the job, get the hell out of here. Let's get somebody else in here who can do the job. Especially, this isn't a complicated mafia thing that involves all the US and international and secrecy and all that. This is Victoria with a little girl who grew up there, born, raised, educated, working in the same place she was born. Everybody knows basically who killed her. You ask anybody there, they know. What's going on? What the hell is going on? I understand it's difficult to prove it. 18 years, I don't take that. And yes, do I get angry? Am I uptight and all that? Right. I had triple bypass open heart surgery a year and a half ago, and the surgeon told me that's specifically from stress because I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs, I exercise, I'm very active, and I eat healthy. Stress, I understand. But you know what? I don't care.
Jeff,
There needs to be justice.
I'm going to make a suggestion to you, and there's no guarantees, but it will be interesting to see the response you get from the police department. And I'll start it out by letting you know that both Ray and I belong to the VDOC Society, VIDOCQ. It's vdoc.org if it's their website, and we're a crime solving
I'm aware of it.
nonprofit based in Philadelphia. We meet once a month. Ray and I are full members, and we help solve crimes from mostly around the U.S., but we've had investigators come in from Canada. Now, you can't bring the case in. A family member can't bring the case in. It has to be sworn law enforcement officers that bring the case in. But I've suggested to other family members who have contacted me either through Cold Red or otherwise, contact the local PD, who's ever investigating the case of your loved one. In this case, of course, it's Saanich. And I think an idea for you, Jeff, would be to write a formal letter, nothing nasty in it, very professional, and say you would like them. You've talked to members of the VDOC Society. That's me. That's Ray. And they've suggested that an option to get some worldwide professional criminal investigators, forensic experts, DNA people, behavioralists, linguists, you name it, that show up at these meetings every month. We could perhaps help them solve the case. They would present it to us on a PowerPoint presentation, and we would walk through it. And we stick with them after the fact too, not just the meeting that goes on for a few hours, but we stay in touch with them down the line with a team we put together, the post presentation resource team we call it. So I know what you're probably going to say, that they wouldn't want to do this, they wouldn't want to open their books to others. But you know what? You may surprise them. You send that letter to them, and then they have to kind of explain to you why they're not going to come to the VDOC Society. And by the way, we pay their way. It doesn't cost them anything to come to Philadelphia. We pay their travel, put them up the lodging. So, Ray, I think you and I would probably go to that meeting and do our best
Absolutely.
to help resolve the case.
There's a meeting initial presentation, and then there's a follow up with some of the best people in the world that take a look at that case through a fine tooth comb. And they provide suggestions to the investigators on how they can approach in solving this case. I mean, I think we could do that. The other thing I want to make a suggestion is I would love to talk to some of the other people, that journalist, a retired police officer, one of Lindsay's friends. I would love to be able to talk to some of those people right here, and we don't have to talk. They don't have to have their picture up here like you have. We can disguise that. We can put a curtain over it. We can disguise their voice. We could do all those things. But all we're trying to do is get the information out so that they can at least give you a fighting chance and give Lindsay a fighting chance to bring some closure to you and to Lindsay.
Okay. I've approached Saanich Police twice with VDOC.
Oh.
They refuse.
Okay.
I could try it a third time.
Well, tell them you've talked to 2 members.
We're not getting there.
And our names. And okay, then that's on them. It seems they don't want this case solved, which I'm not saying we solve every single case that comes before us, but I guarantee you there's never been a case that I've reviewed that we haven't at least given some substantive leads to pursue to get it to the next level. Sometimes they come with us with very good suspects, but they don't have the probable cause to make the arrest. Sometimes it's multiple suspects. They know there's 1 or 2 in there, and sometimes no suspects. So every case, of course, is a little bit different. But okay, well, I didn't know you went to them already about VDoc. But I would say try a third time, and at least you have
I
it in
went
your
to,
files. At least you have it in your
I met,
files. You tried, and they said no.
while I was in Victoria recently, I officially met with the two officers who were last working on Lindsay's file. They were reassigned. They're now back in Detective Division, and they've told me that they've been approved to do a couple tasks. I told them about this show. I told them about you two, that you were former FBI, and I invited them, begged them, tried everything I could to get them to come on the show. And they said, nah, everybody's a criminal profiler. We don't need that stuff. We have no interest. We can't see any purpose or any useful need to be on any more shows.
Well, that attitude is going to help you solve cases.
Hence,
I've always been willing to listen to people, around me,
hence,
outside of me.
pass open heart surgery.
Yeah. Ray, we got to kind of wind down here. Do you want
We do.
to
I'll
final
try.
statement or
I'll
question?
try. I have no problem.
No, we're gonna wind this down. We're gonna be back next week. Next week, we're going to bring on some people we've had on in previous episodes to help talk about this case. One of the individuals is Sil Schieber, who is also had his daughter that was murdered back in 1996, and a Philadelphia homicide detective that worked that case and that's been listening to this podcast, and he has some information and some ideas for you that he wants to share with you.
Super.
So listen next
Okay.
week, you Jeff, and of course our audience out there, and I think you'll appreciate hearing our guests. You heard them over the summertime, well, depending whenever you listen to it, but that's when they were dropped. Uh, um, and I think you'll appreciate Sil and Chuck coming back on for this very particular case. If Ray, final words there, I'll take us out.
No, I just want to give a shout out to a class of mine that the cold case investigations, that they're also listening to this case. And I told them if they have any ideas, they're doing some research in this as well. If they have ideas about this case, let me know, and I will share it on the air.
For that matter, anyone in Vancouver area, British Columbia, you can contact us through our website, coldredpodcast.com, and maybe we can get some movement on this particular case of Lindsay Buziak. Everyone, thank you for listening to or watching this episode of Cold Red. We appreciate our guest, and of course, Ray, you, my co-host. Please like and subscribe to us, share us, check out our website, as I said, coldredpodcast.com. Thanks to our producers, Matt Robinson, Matt McLaughlin, our music coordinator, Rick Schilling, and everybody, again, thanks for listening to this episode, and see you next time on Cold Red.